Hi everybody, welcome back to the Ryan Weiss Show. I'm your host, Ryan Weiss. Thanks for rejoining me today. I'm feeling grateful for everyone who is viewing these videos and supporting me as I create these videos. This will be another installment in lessons for my kids. These are the lessons that I think it's important that my children learn by the time they become adults. I'm feeling particularly grateful for my children today. I'm feeling grateful for them because I think without them, I wouldn't have felt inspired to start this video series and to start creating videos again. I think I'm finally becoming more comfortable creating these videos and communicating my thoughts and ideas. So yeah, feeling grateful for my kids today. Thanks for inspiring me to make these videos. Today, I'm releasing a video I think I'll title called Libertarianism in One Lesson, or An Introduction to Libertarianism. And this video is important to me to make because I am a libertarian. Now that term changes a lot and means a lot to a lot of different people, but I still feel like it's the term that best fits my worldview. And it's important to me that I teach my children what I believe because my beliefs are very important to me. They drive a lot of my decisions and explain, I think, a lot of my behavior. It's also important for me to teach my children about this because I'd love for my children and for my family to share my beliefs and to agree that they're right and true. Now, a lesson that I need to learn or a topic that I need to study more is how to effectively transmit my beliefs to my children. This seems to be something that is important to a lot of people, but not a lot of people seem to accomplish. I know a lot of people who are Catholic and are frustrated that their kids aren't Catholic, or they're Republicans and they're frustrated that their kids are liberals, or they're liberals and they're frustrated that their kids are Republicans. And, I think a certain aspect of this is uncontrollable. Like, I don't want my kids to, just be brainwashed and just believe what they believe because that's what their dad believed. But rather, I'd love to be able to persuade my kids, present them with different viewpoints and then persuade them that, the positions that I've landed on are correct, or have them persuade me that, the positions that they land on are correct. But I think it is nice when you have a harmony of beliefs in your immediate family. It just makes it so much easier to just be on the same page about a bunch of different things. So anyways, libertarianism in one lesson. So first I want to talk about what my beliefs are. Then I want to talk about why they matter to me. And then finally, I want to explain how they affect my behavior. So what are my beliefs? Basically, it comes down to a few central things. Number one, I believe in private property derived from self-ownership. Number two, I believe in property rights. Number three, I believe in the non-aggression principle / the golden rule. And number four, I believe in universality. So taking those one by one, private property derived from self-ownership. So a question that is a good question is, how do you own what you own? What does ownership mean? Do you own yourself? And what should the results of ownership be? So to me, the definition that I use for ownership is having the legitimate right to control something, make use of something, and dispose of something as you see fit. I believe in self-ownership. So I believe that the rightful owner of the self is the self. So you own your own body, you own your own mind, you own your own decisions. And as a result of that, I think that there are a lot of conclusions that you can come to, right? So because you own yourself, you own your own time, you own your own labor. That is why, in my opinion, slavery is immoral. It's due to the concept of self-ownership. If I claim that I own you and that you are ownable by me, and I force you to work and take the money that you would have otherwise earned as my own, I am depriving you of the right of self-ownership. Because you own yourself, you are entitled to the fruits of your own labor. So if you use your body to work and create something of value, you own that value. That is why it's right for you to be paid for the work that you do, to own any products that you create and to have the right to sell those products to other people. Self-ownership. Now, I believe in property rights. So because you own yourself and you own the things that you create and you own your own property, you have certain rights to that property that are derived from self-ownership ultimately, right? So I think it's immoral to take from you, because taking from you means that I am taking something that you derived from your own process of self-ownership, and I'm thereby stealing a piece of your life, right? So if you spend an hour to earn 20 bucks and I take 20 bucks from you, I have taken effectively an hour of your life. I've made you a slave of mine for an hour. So I believe in self-ownership, I believe in property rights, and then I also believe in the non-aggression principle. So the non-aggression principle states that it is immoral to initiate force against another person. So the key there is initiate. I'm not against self-defense. I'm not against defensive violence. I'm against the initiation of violence against an innocent person or an innocent group of people. And then finally, universality. I believe that these moral rules or moral laws are applicable to all people at all times. There are not special people or special conditions that invalidate these moral rules. Some people, most people actually, believe in conditionality of ethical rules and moral laws. I believe in universality. And that has some pretty interesting consequences that I'll get into and how it affects my behavior. So in a nutshell, that is what I believe. I also believe in the importance of consent and, the consent test for a lot of these things. So, for example, what's the difference between rape and sex? Well, the answer is consent. What's the difference between theft and trade? Consent. What's the difference between assault and a boxing match? Consent. So, consent is really key in a lot of different ways in determining the morality of a certain situation. And often a key to an immoral act is the lack of consent. So imposing something upon someone else that they don't consent to, especially in a violent way or in a way that takes away some part of their property rights or their property rights altogether. That's how you can sort of tell if an action is immoral. Now, these beliefs matter to me, and I could expand on them a lot more, but again, I'm trying to keep this in a nutshell. These beliefs matter to me because, number one, they help me understand how the world works. When I see people take certain actions, I can filter them through this moral lens, and it helps me to understand who's in the right, who's in the wrong, why are people doing what they're doing, how can I better protect myself and my rights and my family's rights. They guide me to make moral decisions, right? So they create a filter that I can filter my own decisions through, and they can help me feel like at peace and feel strength in my decisions because I know I'm making them in alignment with my core beliefs. So that's why they matter to me. Now, how they affect my behavior and how I apply them. So, number one, I build businesses and I embrace capitalism because I believe in private property. I believe in individualism. I believe in the free market. I build businesses and I try to maximize my profits within my business. I think that is a moral behavior because my products and services are consensual. I don't coerce anyone to be my customer. I don't coerce anyone to be a vendor of my business. I convince, I pay, and I try to structure win-win relationships within the free market. To me, that is very productive, moral, helpful behavior that is bringing humanity into a more prosperous future. That's how I view my behavior in building businesses and maximizing profit and trying to find win-win relationships. Now, just as a side note, I'll contrast that with, say, the communist perspective of entrepreneurship, which is the communists view entrepreneurs as extracting excess productivity from the proletariat, from the labor force, right? So the labor force creates this excess productivity that the ownership class sort of siphons off as profits. There's so many things that are wrong with that worldview. I can't get into it in one video, but I just wanted to point out that contrast in worldviews, right? I view this as productive, happy moral behavior. I feel great when I do it. I think the people that I do this with end up benefiting in addition to me. I think it's win-win, and I've seen these benefits proven over and over and over again that it'd be really difficult to convince me otherwise. But this is in contrast with some other worldviews. So I build businesses and I embrace capitalism. Number two, the universality component means that I peacefully parent. And peaceful parenting is really important to me. So I don't yell at my kids. I don't hit my kids. That includes spanking. And I'm even on the fence about punishing kids. I'm not sure if punishing is the right thing to do. And that's a pretty controversial take in 2026. I don't know how it'll be in 20 years, but that's pretty controversial, especially the punishing component. I think maybe more people now will agree, yeah, you shouldn't hit your kids. Yeah, you shouldn't yell at your kids. But, you don't punish your kids. Oh, man, they're going to be, spoiled brats or something like that. And so, the key aspect here is the universality component, right? For some reason, children in our society are viewed as second-class citizens. They're the only group of people that you can legally hit. I can't legally hit my wife. I can't legally hit my employees. I can legally hit my children. And that to me is pretty astounding given the non-consensual nature of the parent-child relationship, right? My children did not choose me to be their father. They did not choose to be born, right? I made the decision to bear them. And yet, I can treat them in a way that is more negative than how I can treat other people who are in consensual relationships with me. So, for example, my wife is in a consensual marriage. If I hit her and start to abuse her, she can decide to leave me. Same thing with my employees. I employ, 26 people. If I decide to start hitting them and abusing them and yelling at them, they can decide to quit and get another job. My children cannot decide to quit me being their father and get another father. My 3-year-old can't say, okay, I'd like to try, father number 2. So to me, it's selective application of moral principles when children can be hit and yelled at and other people in your life can't be, right? So I believe in universality of moral principles. So if it's wrong for me to hit my wife, if it's wrong for me to hit my employees, it's wrong for me to hit my children. If it's wrong for me to yell at my wife, if it's wrong for me to yell at my employees, if it's wrong for me to yell at my friends or hit my friends, it's wrong for me to yell at my children. So I peacefully parent. I also have kids. I want to have more kids. I would, previously I'd like to have as many kids as I can. Now, we've had some birth complications, so we might have fewer kids. But to me, I want to have kids so that I can transmit, my values to as many people as I can. Number 3, I avoid collectivism, right? So the application of libertarianism looked at the government, right? So the government is interesting in that it is the only entity that can tax, right? And so taxation is taking resources from citizens without consent. Now that without consent component, we can have a whole conversation around that. But my position that I've been persuaded is that it is without consent. There's no social contract. I never signed an agreement with the government. I can't opt out. And the government's claim over the territory doesn't negate my private property rights and the fact that I own my own house and I own my own body. So, some people will claim, well, it's consensual because you live here and you can go live somewhere else if you don't like this government. But that's just the wrong framing, I think, because I have a right to be here. I own myself. I own my own home. I own the land that my home is on. This is my property. So the government can't lay claim to my property. And so because of that, I don't support taxation. I don't support the government, federal, state, whatever. I view taxation as immoral because it's a taking of resources without consent. And so I avoid participating in collectivism. So things like public schools, I would not send my children to public schools because they are funded via taxation. I try to avoid welfare programs and social programs as much as I can within my personal life, and I encourage other people to avoid them as well. I don't support government-provided services, so if there is a private alternative, I typically opt for that. And it frustrates me because the government makes private alternatives illegal in a lot of situations, and so you're forced to take the government-provided service, right? And then if the government provided service is suboptimal, you can't opt out. And so, it's interesting because the government is not consensual. The government has citizens/subjects that it taxes and enforces laws on. So the government is a special, unique entity. And as a libertarian, I don't support the government. I want to build and support free market, consensual alternatives. I don't negate the value and the importance of some of the services that the government provides. I'm for law and order. I'm for poor people being taken care of. I support the enforcement of laws, things like that. So I'm not a chaotic anarchist. I recognize the value of these services, but I think that all these services should not be provided in a collective way. They should be provided in a private, free market, consensual way. And there's a lot of different ways to get to that. So anyways, that's the government piece applied to that. And then a few other thoughts. So I hope that this has been, helpful in understanding my beliefs, what they're built on, and how I think about things. Libertarianism is not sufficient as a total life philosophy. You have to build your own life philosophy. And I encourage you to study a couple different things. So libertarianism won't tell you how to love a person. It won't tell you how to be happy. It won't tell you, how to find fulfillment. It won't necessarily provide spiritual value. So libertarianism in its own is not a sufficient life philosophy. It's a component of what builds up my total life philosophy, but it's just that, a component, not the totality. Right? So I encourage you not to just stop with libertarianism, but to expand beyond it. I'm hesitant of sharing some of these beliefs, and in fact, I'll be a little bit nervous in publishing this video because some of these beliefs are so far from the mainstream. I'm worried about being labeled like a weirdo or a whack job or something like that. I think that these beliefs are picking up steam big time. And I think that it's important that I practice courage in telling people what I truly believe. So I will publish this video. But sometimes I'm a little bit hesitant to share these beliefs, and sometimes I hide them around other people because I'm worried about how I'll be perceived. And I just encourage you to remain open-minded. I arrived at my libertarian beliefs because I think I remained open-minded. And I sort of said, okay, let's let the best argument win. And when I was in college, I read the Communist Manifesto, and I said, okay, that's interesting, collective ownership and the rights of the proletariat and whatever. And then I read Economics in One Lesson, and then I read some F.A. Hayek and Ludwig von Mises and Human Action. And ultimately, I found those arguments to be more persuasive. Now, I'm glad that I read the counter-arguments, and I'm open to additional arguments too. I have seen a convincing argument that libertarianism should not be embraced due to the people who are libertarians that embrace libertinism, right? And I am not for libertinism. I am not for, how should I say, decadence and social extravagance and orgies and polyamorism and, a bunch of weird, I'm personally, I'm pretty socially conservative. I'm married, I'm straight, I have kids, and that's so I'm pretty white bread as far as that goes, and I don't embrace some of the libertinism, and I think that can have a destructive component to society. But anyways, that is the basis of my libertarian beliefs. I want to share these with my children. I hope that they can learn to embrace them, because I find them to, I find the libertarian worldview to be pretty accurate, a pretty fulfilling and moral way to live, and pretty helpful. It served me a lot to be a libertarian. So thanks for watching. I said 10 minutes. I got to 19 minutes, but hey, that's okay. I think it's an important topic, and I still probably didn't do it justice, and I still probably said some things that that are not necessarily fully explained. But thanks for bearing with me and hearing my worldview in 15 minutes. And yeah, I hope that this was helpful. And this is absolutely a topic I love to discuss. So feel free to comment. Give me a call if you have my number. Comment here if you want my number, and let's talk about this. So thanks for watching. Ryan Weiss, Lessons for My Kids, signing out.